I'd like to say nothing changes, but a lot changed in Canada as of 10 o'clock yesterday morning, Thursday morning. The Supreme Court basically said that townships have the right to pass legislation on anything in Canada, including our constitutional rights and freedoms. They also basically threw out Section 1 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is that notwithstanding clause that allows judges to make decisions that abrogate freedom of expression for English-speaking people in favor of French-speaking people. And Section 1 was, it's very clear. What it says is that when the French language is imperiled, when there is real need to give special privileges and rights to the French language, then the judges have the right to take away freedom of expression from English speakers. But that was never argued. It wasn't argued at Superior Court, it wasn't argued at the Court of Appeal. Actually, we argued it somewhat, but it was never brought up. Section 1 was never brought up. So what the judges said at Superior Court, this majoriy, and then what the 3 Court of Appeal judges said was, well, even though Russell Township's forced bilingual law, forced is my word, they just called it a bilingual law, even though it took away freedom of expression and violated Section 2B, which is that special clause designed specifically for freedom of expression, even though it took that away, it was the right thing to do. I have no idea who decides what is the right thing to do. The right thing to do based on what law? Well, there is no law. There was no law that was defended. CASA never debated Section 1, because Section 1 is, as I said, is there to defend the French language when it's in jeopardy. However, in Russell, the French community has actually grown by 1%. So I don't know where they're in jeopardy. So now we have a whole new definition to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that definition is when it's the right thing to do, according to whom. The other issue, which is critical, is a question of my standing. Now, the Supreme Court in September came up with a judgment in Vancouver for sex trade workers, that they were being unfairly treated by the city of Vancouver. I believe it was the city of Vancouver or one of the adjacent cities, and a group who were advocates for sex trade workers' rights came forward and sued the city. And the city said, well, you can't sue us, you have no standing. You're not sex workers, you don't even live in this city, and frankly, there's no reason for you to inject yourselves into this. And it went to the Supreme Court. It went through the normal channels, like our case did. It went to the Supreme Court, and what the Supreme Court ruled, and usually Supreme Court rulings are so complicated that you need someone to tell you what they said. In this case, it was simple. They said that the issue had a national interest, that how the sex trade workers were dealt with in Vancouver had an interest to how they might be dealt with in any other city as well. Therefore, anyone would have standing to defend or to petition against the city of Vancouver in this case, because the issue wasn't just a little local issue. The other thing they said was that the people who litigated against the city of Vancouver had more than a passing interest. And that was one of their criteria as well. So it's not just someone coming out of the clear blue without any reasonable interest or professional interest to litigate against Vancouver. Now, if that's the case, I don't know anyone in Canada that has more of an interest in language rights than I do. And then there's another issue, and they said you don't have to live in Vancouver to have this interest. You can live anywhere. You can live out of the province and still have standing. And the third issue they dealt with, and I don't think it was nearly as important, is the person who's litigating against the city doing it for monetary benefit. And the answer was no, not in the case of the sex workers. Well, it's the same thing with myself. There was no demand upon anyone for any kind of monetary benefit. All we wanted to do was get rid of a law that took away our freedom of expression. So in the case of the Vancouver sex workers, it was very clear. And the Supreme Court judgment, it was a unanimous judgment, made it extremely clear, which was absolutely identical to my case of standing. They didn't even hear it. They would, even before they came up with their judgment in September. Before that, according to all the other jurisprudence, I had standing, but they weren't interested in hearing it. So we had three very important issues on the table. One was standing, which we should have won hands down, considering the Supreme Court already made that ruling. The other one was Section 2B, the freedom of expression. And all the judges, from Metivier to the Court of Appeals in Toronto, made it very clear that Section 2B was violated. We lost our freedom of expression. They admitted it freely. And then the third issue was, does a township or a city or anybody, any council, have the right to legislate language, cultural issues, constitutional issues? And this ruling says yes. So it changes the face of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms in many different ways. Not only does it do that, but now, right across Canada, it's the law of the land. So any French activist group anywhere in Canada, whether it's here, whether it's in Manitoba, it doesn't matter where. If they can convince the politicians, whether it's the councillors or the mayor or whomever, that it's in their best interests to violate the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms for them to get re-elected, well, that's what's going to happen. So Canadians from far and wide are now in jeopardy. And not just about language issues, because if you can apply this to language, what can't you apply it to? And if a township can do this vis-a-vis the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, what can't they do? Where are their limits? I woke up yesterday morning. I was very nervous, like anyone else who has an interest in this case. At 10 o'clock, I read the non-judgment. I went for a long walk with my wife and our dog, and about an hour in the forest, and I came back kind of refreshed. Nothing changed. You know, the sun still came up. I still had breakfast. I still had issues to deal with, you know, with business and other things. Nothing changed, except Canada changed a bit. So where do I go from here? What do I do? Do I say, well, screw it, it's enough, the stress, the money, and all the other things, were they worthwhile? Did I waste my time? Did I waste several years of my life? Should I just walk away now and say, screw them? You know, let the country go the way the country's going to go. Because frankly, not very many people paid attention to this. It's their lives. A lot of good people did. The CLF did. People like Kim McConnell, people like Beth Trudeau, Tammy Hart, Mayor McGillis, people like Chris and Debbie Cameron. A lot of people they really went out of their way to make a difference. But most people didn't. They sleepwalk. So what should I do? So I thought about it. I'm going to do what I've always done. Canada lost. I didn't lose. I had nothing to gain, so I had nothing to lose. Canada lost. Should I continue or should I quit? Well, you know, countries are not built by the majority. They're built by individuals. Rights are never defended by the majority. They're always defended by the individuals. It's just another day, and we'll keep going. And we'll go just that much more aggressively. And instead of worrying about a corrupt and incompetent court, let's deal with the people, and let's take it to the people where it really matters, and let's take it to the politicians.